Hello everyone. Today we are welcoming Dr. Gautam from Asian Institute of Gastroenterology, which is a very prestigious hospital here in Hyderabad and known for the entire country. They have recently tied up with Mayo Clinic and have opened up a very big hospital in Gachibowli, Hyderabad. They have one of the best COVID care centers in the country. My husband, my mother-in-law, and few of my relatives have been treated over there, and I should say the care is fantastic. And all of them have recovered successfully, even being in ICU for more than 8 days, especially my husband. So here I'm going to talk about how they are uh, treating COVID cases, what are the accommodations that they are doing for the increasing number of cases, and what is it that especially focusing on post-COVID recovery, which we have seen to be suppressing immune system because of over usage of steroids and so on. So today let's talk to Dr. Gautam. So how did you get to become a pulmonologist? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Dr. Gautam. I'm a consultant pulmonologist at AIG Hospital, Gachibowli. Right from the childhood days, I'm interested. My father is basically he's also a doctor, so I'm tuned. I can say, okay, I'm tuned in that way to become a doctor. Uh, basically, my interest is to become a general physician.
I see.
But ultimately, I landed up in taking pulmonology, and right now I'm very satisfied with this.
All right. Great. Great. So, why do you think there was a sudden rise in cases starting from end of Feb? Why do you think that happened?
So it is mainly due to the complacent behavior of the public. They are not wearing masks. They are not maintaining physical distancing. No proper hygiene, hand hygiene, etc. And on the top of it, everywhere the government has it took up the ban on cinema theaters. Local trains are running here and there, and because of this there is a suddenly acute surge in COVID-19, and at the same time there are few mutant strains we have noticed. Their infectiousness has increased. Their potential to spread others has increased, and their infectivity, their virulence has also increased. Because of all these factors, we are seeing a higher number of cases this time when compared to the last year.
So, is it something the mutation of this strain that is happening on the go, or is it a new strain completely that we have seen from international travelers, or how is this?
Yes, some new strains are seen, and at the same time, this increase in case burden is because of our own behavior.
I see. I see.
Number one, mainly the people, they are not wearing their mask properly.
Yeah.
The mask should ideally cover both nose and
The mouth.
your mouth. But most of the patients, they are keeping the mask like this, and some people, they are keeping the mask like this.
Right.
So there is no point in wearing a mask.
Right. So
So
right
because
now.
of the main reason, so many people are getting affected, and they are spreading the COVID-19 to others.
Hmm. So right now, how many strains have you detected at AIG? How many different kind
So
of strains?
actually, we don't do that testing.
I see.
So we don't have that lab to detect any new strains and all.
I see.
Basically, I think it is done in the CCMB Hyderabad,
Uh-huh.
and only few labs, viral lab in Pune,
I see.
and only few centers does that.
I see.
Not all.
I see. So, is it true that now the virus has become airborne?
Yes, according to the new evidence, the virus is, the scientists are telling that the virus is airborne. So, but we do not worry, and because I'm telling this from my experience. I'm seeing COVID patients since last 2 years.
Hmm.
So, with a simple face mask and with a simple face shield, we can prevent COVID.
I see.
Since 2 years, I'm not affected with COVID for a single time.
Right.
So, even if it is airborne,
Hmm.
we need not worry. In the open place, the density of virus will be automatically less. Inside the home also, if someone are affected with COVID, you just need to give them a good properly ventilated room. That's it.
Okay.
it is mainly if you maintain good and adequate ventilation in your room, the virus burden in that particular room will get automatically decreased, and new infections can be avoided to other person, other family members.
Actually, if you remember, that was the case with my husband. He isolated himself for 5 days without opening the windows, and he was inhaling the same thing again and again.
Yeah.
So his SpO2 levels went way below 90 at one point. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So right now, under so plasma therapy, I've seen a lot of people contacting about plasma therapy. So how effective is plasma therapy, and if a person, how do we identify if a particular person is eligible to give his blood for plasma therapy?
According to the latest literature, there is no role of plasma therapy in treating COVID, critically ill COVID patients. And the observation at our center is also same. Okay. In critically ill patients, nothing works except supportive therapy and the prescribed dose of steroids. Only supportive therapy and steroids will work in critically ill patients. And plasma is basically, it contains antibodies against the virus. It can be given in certain subset of population where we cannot give other drugs like remdesivir, etc. For example, in patients with severe liver disease and patients with severe kidney disease, if we are unable to give the mainline treatment, but if he's having high spikes of fever, at that particular particular patients, we can try plasma therapy. But according to the latest literature, plasma therapy is of no use in COVID patients.
I see. And is there certain guidelines on who can donate, their blood for plasma?
So actually, before donating plasma, the patient should be infected with COVID. He should not, according to the latest, he should not be vaccinated. Okay, and before donation, the particular blood bank, they will check the antibody titers. Not all patients will develop antibodies after the infection. Only few develop. Okay. So they will check the antibody titers. And if the antibody titers are adequate, then only you can develop. You can donate.
I see. Now, coming to vaccinations, how effective are the vaccines that are there in India right now? One is Covaxin and the other is Covishield.
So according to the literature, I think Covaxin is around 60 to 65%. It has got an efficacy of 60 to 65%. Covishield, sorry, and Covaxin has got around 75, like that. So, but what our observation is, those who are already vaccinated, they are having very mild disease. Most of our staff, they got Covishield. Even though it has got a efficacy of 60 to 65%. The severity of COVID, they got infected even after taking vaccination. That's a different issue. But the infection, the severity of infection is very less in the people who got vaccinated. In the second wave, we are seeing a lot of younger generation, age 20, 25, 30. They're landing up in severe illness.
And
so one reason could be, yes, they are landing, they are on ventilators. So many people. Last year, it was the ratio of 50 of, for example, 60, more than 80% are older population. Only 10 to 20% are younger. But now, in this wave, around 30 to 40% of our ICUs are filled up with the age group of 20 to 50. And patients without any comorbidities, without any hypertension, diabetes are getting severe disease. And that can be one of the reasons could be they are not vaccinated till now. The older generation, they are protected because of vaccine. They are having very milder disease this time.
I see. And what about kids below the ages of 10? Because we have been hearing about cases.
Even actually, we don't have experience with pediatric age group. In our center, we don't take that age group. But according to the literature, the children, they are having very, very mild symptoms, and only few children are getting sick with the requirement of oxygen.
I see. Okay. So after how many days after being discharged? Now say you have a critical COVID patient, right? And once his SpO2 levels are about 94, you discharge him, right? And once they discharge, you ask them to come back after 1 week or 2 weeks for another follow-up checkup. How many of those patients are actually coming for that checkup?
I mean, most of them are coming. Most of them. If they are unable to come, they are taking online consultation.
I see. So you do have that option of online consultation.
Yes.
That's great. And what are the post-COVID? Do you see there are any post-COVID symptoms that they are developing?
The main post-COVID symptom is fatigue,
Fatigue.
weakness, generalized weakness.
What
For
about
those
taste
patients,
and
we
smell?
need not do anything extra.
Hmm.
We do not do anything extra. Ask them to take good food,
Hmm.
adequate liquids, and a little bit of exercise.
What about taste and
We
smell?
called it as rehabilitation. Taste and all, they are just minor symptoms. Loss of smell, loss of taste, those are minor symptoms. They will come automatically. So in most of the patients, they will come within 10 to 15 days.
Okay.
But in few patients, it will take around 1 to 2 months of time also. But nothing to worry.
I see.
They will come back.
I've heard some cases where even after 6 months they have not regained their senses of taste and smell. Is that possible?
Yes, yes. In only few cases.
I see. I see. And what about shingles and herpes zoster? People who have chicken pox who are experiencing this post COVID. Is there any
In
sort of literature that
post-COVID,
supports it?
actually in patients with COVID with respiratory failure, we need to use steroids.
Yes.
Okay. Till now, we didn't come across any case of herpes or zoster because so many people will even when most of them they will have subclinical, dormant infections. But we did not see a single case of zoster till now. We saw so many fungal cases, fungal infections, so called black fungus and all.
Mm-hmm.
That too in this second wave. In the last wave, we did not see any infection. So in this second wave, we are seeing so many fungal infections that could be due to inappropriate use of steroids. Normally, steroids should be used in the second half only, that too only when it is there indicated.
I see.
But generally, what is happening in the peripheries and in even in Hyderabad, in most of the in some physicians are using steroids from day one of illness. It should be avoided. So steroids are used only when there is hypoxia, that is less oxygen saturation.
I see.
Okay. So in such situations only steroids should be used. That too, lower doses of steroids as prescribed by WHO or prescribed by the other predominant bodies. Such low level of steroids should be used.
And does
Inappropriate dosing and inappropriate timing of steroids can lead to such infection.
but when you give out steroids, it's for more than 2 weeks sometimes, right? And when it is taken for more than 2 weeks, what are the other things other than suppressed immunity do they, get?
Usually steroids can cause gastritis,
I see.
some alterations in mood, and if used for prolonged periods, it can cause bone resorption and leading to osteoporosis.
I see.
But those effects are very, very rare.
I see.
Because in previously also before COVID also some patients like SLE, patients of SLE and other transplant patients, they are on chronic steroid use. I mean, we have to suppress their immunity.
Yeah.
But the doses and the side effects should be carefully monitored and treated accordingly.
I see. So you mentioned about the black fungus, right? So how is it something that is in conjecture with COVID when the patient is affected with COVID, or is it a post-COVID symptom that you're seeing?
It is a post-COVID symptoms. Not all patients develop those fungus. Only patients with uncontrolled diabetics.
I see.
And patients having, we are seeing patients, in mucor patients, if the ferritin levels are high, we are seeing these mucor infections, mainly in diabetics and in those patients who are on long-term steroid use.
I see. And how can they identify whether they have black fungus? What are the symptoms?
So usually it affects the sinuses,
I see.
or it affects the eyes, or if it affects the lungs. Okay, the usual presentation is sinus infection. You will have headache or the frontal region, or you will have headache or the this called maxillary sinus or the cheeks, and you will notice some swelling.
I see.
And if eye is involved, you will have loss of vision
I see.
and continuous nasal discharge. If nose is affected, it can cause continuous nasal discharge, etc. So any symptoms are there, get an ENT consultation. Okay, and they will examine and do the appropriate thing.
Okay. And I've heard that AIG has collaborated with Radisson Radisson Hotels, and they have opened up an extended COVID care over there. So I think that's a
Yes.
great job. So are you seeing that rise of cases even now, or has it subsided in the last couple of weeks?
No, it has subsided. The workload has been decreased, and the pressure of new admissions has been decreased.
I see.
The cases are coming down after the lockdown is implemented.
I see.
It is working actually.
Okay. So now that the lockdown has also extended till the 30th,
Yes.
so do you prospect that the cases are going to come down a bit more?
The cases will come down definitely. But even after the lockdown, also all of us should impose self-imposed lockdown.
Right.
Go out only when it is necessary, and even if you go out, wear adequate protective equipment.
Right.
Okay, use the mask properly.
Right.
And if required, use additional face shield also.
Yes. So how effective is sunlight for post-COVID recovery? Because I've been doing a lot of research with respect to the benefits of sunlight, like how newborn babies, especially in India, it's a big culture, right? The first rays of the sun, we take the baby bare naked and place him under the sun, and it also so I've been reading these research journals, but I wanted to know how effective is sunlight with respect to post-COVID recovery, because mood swings, fatigue, and all, the cortisol levels that come up and the serotonin levels that come up when you are up in the sun early in the morning, right before 8 o'clock, right? They have a different hormonal implications in your body with respect to mood swings and so on. So, what is your take on that?
Till now, actually, I don't know exactly about this particular topic, but definitely sunlight has got a positive effect on our mood, on our melatonin levels, which promotes sleep during the night time. And adequate sleep can automatically it changes your mood, and it has a positive impact on your any disease process, not only COVID, on any disease process. If you have a good night's sleep, then your health improves automatically. And at the same time, sunlight is a good source of vitamin D, and vitamin D levels, if they are less, your immunity will be lessened. So adequate exposure to the sunlight causes increase in vitamin D levels, and in that way your immunity will build up.
Right. So other than this, has any of your patients also complained about hair loss and other symptoms that they are experiencing, any sort of skin rashes post COVID that they have experienced?
Skin rashes can be because of steroids. Usually they develop skin rashes over the forehead, and any kind of stress can lead to hair loss.
I see. Okay. So do you have any other tips? So what is your final advice to the people?
So to prevent, in COVID, adequate, timely monitoring is important. Number one. So you should, during the home quarantine period, you need to monitor your temperatures and particularly your oxygen levels with the help of pulse oximeter. Normal oxygen levels are more than 95%. SpO2 should be more than 95%. And there is one more test called 6 minutes walk test. Okay. Normally, if your lungs are normal, the oxygen levels will not drop even if you walk, even if you run, even if you climb a mountain. The oxygen levels will be maintained more than 95%. But your lung is affected with certain disorders. For example, COVID. After walking for 6 minutes, or if you cannot walk for 6 minutes, at least walk for 3 to 4 minutes on a level ground at your normal pace. If after walking, if your oxygen levels are decreased, to less than 95%, it is a time for you to get admitted. Okay, and with these basic home-based test, we can avoid all kinds of complications like ICU stay, mechanical ventilator, prolonged hospitalization, secondary infection, everything.
Okay.
If you come at this stage, we can get you out within 3 to 5 days, and you can go back home happily.
Okay. So the 6-minute walk test and the pulse oximeter, right?
Yes,
So
that
these
is the main crux of COVID-19 monitoring.
Okay. And then wearing the mask completely by covering your nose and your mouth.
Yes,
And better
yes,
to have a face shield along with the mask for double protection.
yes. And if you don't have a face shield also, you can double your mask.
Double
You
mask.
can keep a double mask.
I see.
Okay.
Alright.
And there should not be any gaps between your mask and your skin.
Skin. I see.
Okay. You should be touching your
Skin all the way.
skin.
The outline should be
Yes.
touching your skin.
Yes. Yes.
Alright. Great. Alright. Thank you, Dr. Gautam. Okay.
Yeah.